for Nigeria. It's a unifying factor that it was not. Imagine today that it is an Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a Southwesterner, as president, who named and insisted on a June 12th as a public holiday and as a national day. It would have been given tribal coloration. But look at the man who did it. And that tells you that that has become a unifying factor. In all its tragedy, in all its bloodiness, there is some peace and there is some hope and there is some unification away from the hot divisions that Nigerians experience. And I insist that divisions in Nigeria are ephemeral and pretentious. They are dishonest and at all times never intended for national growth for any altruistic purpose. Religion and tribe are only invoked during elections.
But then you talked about the fact that these people, all right, should be held at high esteem, get into
they should be celebrated, yes.
They should be celebrated. And you also talked about the fact that the declaration of June 12 as a day to celebrate democracy was being brought on board by a president from the north, not even from west, where we have MKO Abiola. Now, when you say these people, who are you referring to? Then we are being made to understand a lot of Nigerians believe that the June 12th election is, if you are, tell us why.
Now, for the first time, and to give a lie, which is what, again, it is fortuitous, it is indeed providential, that he took a portage, a scion of Abiola, to come back and do a Muslim ticket and win an election in Nigeria. God is a Nigerian. It is to show Nigerians that religion and tribe are never a factor in our national life. That it is only a handful of persons, power mongers, who use it and toy with the brains and destiny of Nigerians by constantly referring to it at each time they want to grab power. It is never for the intentment of putting Nigeria together. I challenge any Nigerian to tell me, why with its population, where will economics be more purposeful and more beneficial and more profitable than Kano State, where you can easily build a dry sea port? From Port Harcourt, we had a Kaduna refinery piped out by a Northerner. Today, it takes a Dangote to set up the best refinery on earth in Lagos State of all places. Nobody in the land that is Lekki and where that place is. Look at the concessions given to him by the Lagos State government. The people working there, none of them has asked the question, for me to be employed, am I Yoruba or Hausa? Am I Fulani headsman or not? Nobody has bothered to ask, what language do you speak? Nobody has asked which mosque you attend or which church. All of them are working in that place, getting their benefits and feeding their family from it. 98% of the person working there are not Fulanis, where Dangote is from. Nobody has questioned that. No Yoruba man is asking why you building a refinery here. But let Dangote tomorrow say, I want to be governor of Lagos State. He'll be reminded of where he comes from, because power is involved. What is more powerful than setting up an economy that touches the life of every single person, from the cyclist to the pure water seller, from the keke rider? They are benefiting. They don't need to go to school to do that. Those who are artisans are building for those who are working there. Those who are working there don't have money to build or rent houses. That means the neighborhood, their land, their everything, the life, the economic life there has turned around. All for the betterment from the actions of one man who is neither by religion or by tribe or by language affiliated to the Yorubas. Not father, not mother, but by sheer economic wizardry, he is unifying the country. So you now find the continent in melting point in Lagos. That is why they call themselves aquatic splendor, land of aquatic splendor. So from the ocean to the creeks of Badagry, you are finding Nigerians mingling and commingling without questioning their tribe or tongue. But each time we want to run an election, we do that. That is what June 12 taught us. At that time, we thought it was a fluke, that it could never work. Even up to 2023, Nigerians, including APC members, jumped ship and said that it can never work. They shall gain their fate. I don't know where Jesus told them, which part of the Bible. Even when the Jewish woman, the woman who asked for the blessings from Jesus, and Jesus said to him in Matthew's Gospel, you shall not take the bread meant for the children and give to the dogs. What was the response of the woman? Even the crumbs that fall from the table, the dogs can feed from it. And Jesus said, your faith has healed. It was a profound statement. Only Matthew's gospel records that among the entire, the three synoptic gospels. You find them that today, by 2023, God the Son, God the Son, 30 years exactly after President Tinubu emerged with a Muslim ticket and won. And for the first time in our political history, since 1979, a president of Nigeria won an election without leaving Lagos and Kano. President Tinubu from Lagos lost the first election in his life in Lagos and still won the national election.
So what does that speak? Losing an election in your own place where you've been a governor before, then you lose an election despite all the campaign that we heard was done.
And yet people talk about an election that was rigged. So the man rigged himself to failure in his own state. Goes to Kano. All that was wiping out and building up within 30 years. And it is not an accident. It is God's divine message to Nigerians that stop the bickering. I brought you here for a purpose. And every person, remember, who has come as an individual to impose himself on the Nigerian state as a movement has never won an election in Nigeria. I'll give you statistics.
Please go ahead. I think Nigerians want to get the stats. We want to get the statistics. So
I'm not the Bello. I'm not the Bello. Never became statistics. So I'm not the Bello. I'm not the Bello. Never became president of Nigeria. He was the cult figure president of Nigeria. He was the cult figure of the North. After several attempts, I went with the cult figure of the West. For you to win an election in any state in Western Nigeria, you must be an Awoist. He attempted it how many times? He never did. Aminu Kano, a cult hero within his Talakawas of northern Nigeria. So as individuals, no Nigerian has on account of Buhari himself, winning 12 states out of 19 in northern Nigeria, and not able to make it because the heroism that he needed to get an alliance in Western Nigeria and Southern Nigeria, with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for him to be able to win. So it would Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for him to be able to win. So it was now a collective decision. After the merger of ACN, AMPP, part of ABGA, part of PDP, and of course CPC, which he led. That was when he could win it. But the same thing you are seeing Peter Biamos was attempting to do here.
Why is it possible if it has happened before?
Let me now tell you, you must interpret the context in which these situations occurred. In 2011, the coalition was mooted. I partook in the processes. But the Constitution gives you a timeline within which you must fulfill that. That wasn't fulfilled in 2011. So the idea was suspended. And to give a decoy, we created a seeming disagreement within the union, within that major team. By 2012, the movement started towards the end of 2012 to ensure that we meet up with the timeline. And the Constitution is clear that once you meet the criteria and the conditions precedent for setting up of a new political party, you dance. APC will be the last under the watch of a Tinubu as national leader to allow a one-party state. Even if it happens, he will create an opposition for APC. That is the kind of progressive that he is. Plurality of opinion and divergence of opinion and views is what is the stew with which you eat democracy.
But a lot of people are speculating the one-party system in Nigeria because of the kind of defection that we are having. You see governors defecting and asking everyone working with them to defect alongside. And you see the way it's happening. That's the reason people are speculating that they
more to one party than it happened in the 16 years of PDP. Maybe you have forgotten. DPP, formed by Jules Okalu, won a seat in Imo State. You forgot? And Obasanjo went as president to receive him. And what did he say? A promise kept. Meaning, because they didn't want Ararume at that time in PDP, they ensured that the ticket which he won was neutralized in the courts and now brought a surrogate, a placeholder in DPP, or PPA rather, and in PPA, Edoha won the election. And when he won the election, Obasanjo, as president, went to Owerri to receive him and say this is a promise kept, meaning before the election they had already discussed with him that the only reason you win this election is because you are coming to PDP. It was as range and as brazen as that. Judgments were arrested in the Sokoto case. If you remember, Wamako, he did elections in 2 and got 2 tickets at the same time. For him to remain there and become Justice Salami came out with a judgment ready to read it. The judgment was arrested, he was suspended, and it never happened. And Wamako remained and became a PDP man overnight with 2 tickets in his hand, which was not allowed by the Electoral Act as at the time. I will go on and show you that defections do not in any way give. On the contrary, if you remember, Action Congress, not Action Congress of Nigeria, 29th of April 2006, Action Congress was born with a merger from AD to ACD, Advanced Congress of Democrats, headed by the former secretary of SDP, Alexis Anielo, now late. He was chairman of ACD, while a faction of AD, led by Ashwaju, came to meet us here in Amso Hotel to ask for a merger. That was the first merger that people never noticed. And that was how a faction of AD and ACD came out to make AC. And by December, we became ACN in Blue Roof in Ikeja. That was how ACN was born. The N was added to make it pan-Nigerian, so that it can become over. When that happened, there was requirement for us to bring in more partners. So when the G5 happened to PDP, we took those factions which they call the new PDP. And of course, what do you call him? In Imo State, Rochas Okorocha led another faction of ABGA. He was an ABGA governor to join ACN. And of course, CPC, an alliance between Ashwaju and to show you how democratic and progressive Ashwaju is. Between 2007, when he left office and handed over on the 2nd of July to Fashola, he never sought office or not ever got any appointment or sought to get one. On the contrary, he was continuously supporting all opposition parties. In fact, the battle in Edo State for Adams Oshomole to remain there, to be ACN governor, came from Lagos. And that is why when Obaseki was shouting, "Don't be Lagos," he was only talking part of history and was just showing high signs of ingratitude. For such persons always go into oblivion, because when you buy the finger that fits you, the results are natural. They are natural causes. So where we are now and the diversions that we are getting in terms of can never bring us to a one-party state. It is not difficult. It's impossible to have a one-party state in Nigeria. The composition of Nigeria, the very energy that Nigerians exude makes it impossible for anybody to cage Nigeria. If Abacha couldn't cage Nigeria and turn himself into a civilian president, if Babangida couldn't do it, even within the same military, from his own place, even his own classmates and friends couldn't allow him, is it now under this open space that you imagine that anybody can make Nigeria turn into a one-party state? In any case, like I said, Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that I know I've worked with since 2016 today, closely, will, on his own volition, offer to become an opposition to himself, because that is the major ingredient that makes democracy thrive. Anything outside of that, when you have a monolithic system, progress is retarded, if not eliminated. So it is impossible for Nigeria to make progress without having a multi-party democracy. It is the best for us. But what I will not also, you can tell me that China has a one-party state, Russia has a, we are not Russians. We are not Chinese.
And we're not Russian anywhere.
So we can find out that Nigerians and Nigeria will remain a multi-party democracy. You can weaken some parties, but what would have happened to us, the best that can happen to us at the end of the day, is that we're going to have 2 top parties that will keep alternating power, as it is happening in the United States. The United States don't have any Democrats and Republicans. There are more than 100 parties. In the UK, the Tories are still there. The Labour Party is just a recent thing. In fact, in America, the Democrats, after 100 years, were still referred to as communists. That's why they never won any election. It took them 101 years to win their first presidential election in the United States of America. Some parties are there that are only interested in one seat in the House of Assembly. The others that are there that just want governorship. So the aggregation of that is what you are seeing as Democrats and as Republicans. So here in Nigeria, I will want to see one day for us to return to SDP NRC, that is, to a two-party system in two dominant parties contest for power in a manner that will give us a balance.
Had in June 12.
Yes, that is what brought June 12 and made it what it was. The man who, in fact, if you remember, Tofa lost the election in Kano, his own home state, just like Tinubu lost today in his own home state and still won the election.
I think I still remember Tofa when people were abbreviating it, that is taking over from military, from army.
Yes.
I can still remember
that was very ingenuity. Yes.
But then, let's come to talk about June 12 elections annulment. Do you think we are having the kind of democracy that we had in June 12, all right? Do you think that democracy is what we have today? Or if that election would have stood, if that it was annulled, if it is that election stood and that democracy actually came to stay, do you think would have had a better democracy? Because a lot of people complain today that the kind of democracy that we have in Nigeria is not what Nigerians were told about democracy. I don't know, what's your thoughts?
Let me give you this background. I am one of those who believe in option A4. Professor Wosu did something that, and then the political bureau that brought about the kind of democracy we ran, where you have the open ballot system. And people are calling it primitive. What is primitive about people who came queued? We are sitting with you in a beer parlor, they are voting over there. We come from the house, you are my younger brother, my father is standing there, my mother is this way, and then we walk into the place to vote, and you and I, as their children, walk to the other queue, and they stand on the other queue and say, that man is their childhood friend. And we say, this man is young, and we used to play football together, therefore we are following him. And we queue there. After that, we walk back to the house and start eating, and they still send you go to farm, and you go to farm and return, and they still pay your fees. What was wrong with that? And they say it is primitive. What makes it primitive? When it was giving you result, because on your own you have announced your result. Just looking at the queue, you know your result. Nobody is going to write it for you. Your queue is half, the other man's queue is still expanding. You just walk home and know you have lost. All you need is to formalize the counting. And people said it was primitive, it is not modern. What makes a thing modern? What makes a thing acceptable? So Americans will teach us what to do here. All the school we've gone to, all of our intellectuals cannot undertake to build a system that is transparent. What can be more transparent than watching people on the queue? They say people will fight. Nobody fought toward June 12th. Yet everybody knew who voted where. Everybody knew. There was no enemy till today. I don't know anybody in my place who comes to you and says, because of that thing you did to me in 1993, I won't forgive you. But today we secret ballot. When we lost an election, your guess is these people didn't vote for me. An entire community, an entire local government is condemned. I lost election in that local government. I lost election in that state. Therefore, I won't do anything there. Whereas under SDP NRC, because people saw their result and knew that they have to amend their ways and get themselves fed with the people and interact with the people, they needed to know that this is where everybody stands, and these are the reasons, because you were being told brazenly, openly, without any equivocation, without any hide and seek, without anybody harassing anybody. Nobody carried the gun, nobody carried the machete. But with secret ballot, people are willing orders, people are carrying ballot boxes and running. Today, candidates are being, that we are being told are being manipulated, even when there is a glitch. Today, JAM has a glitch. Nobody talks about rigging of JAM to get what, to what effect. But when you now go back and do a history of glitches, nothing feels like technology. So no system is perfect. But you cannot tell me that we walked to this place and then people have queued up and you say it is not. So for me, what we lost in June 12th was not perfecting the open ballot system, the option A4, in which your people eliminate you so that by the time you get to the final election, there's less problem. Because under June 12th, you had a system in which people were eliminated from their own communities, in which everybody in every community knows who is going to do what, who is capable of what. So in that way, there is no imposition. In that way, you can't have accidental leadership. In that way, you have a leadership, progressive leadership succession plan and program. But we lost that opportunity. Today, we are going digital. Today, we are going technological. Today, we must use ICT. If we must use ICT, it must still have a human face. It is nearly not possible to avoid the human intervention and human interference and human presence in human affairs. You are not going to bring spirits to do that. As long as you are going to do things concerning human beings, the human element must be factored into the processes that we are thinking about. Was it not Al Gore and George Bush Jr., whose election was determined by Florida, where the younger Bush had his brother as governor? What were they talking about? Overvoting. Let's do physical counting. Where else would technology have been used than in America? But they were not insisting on let's go and do physical counting. And in the process of physical counting, time elapsed. By a fusion of time, Al Gore was defeated. Even when it was later found that there was indeed actual voting, but the law says within this number of days, which is what we are adopting here today. So by just mere fact that the time has elapsed for you to do trial, because there must be an end to litigation. There must be an end to litigation. You can't stay in perpetuity getting into legal activities and legal actions while the society suffers. So the whole aim of justice will be defeated if it is not to benefit the greater majority of the people. So that is where we are today, that as we move on and on, we should know and learn that the peculiarities of our country must be taken care of by our own intellectuals and give us a system that is functional here. We can't take American system hook, line, and sinker because it won't just operate here.
Talking about a system that is functional, let me come. If you ask a 12-year-old in Nigeria right now, the only thing this will tell you is elections in Nigeria is not free and fair. That's what a lot of people say, a lot of Nigerians say. Now, do you think there are things we need to do to get the mind of the people, the mentality of the people to correct impressions so that Nigerians can believe in totality that we now have an election that is free and fair? How do we get to that level?
We are getting there unknown to many people. I have contested elections. I've won elections in this country when it was impossible to think of winning. When governors can decree a candidate into office. I suffered it. I suffered it in Cross River. We had to do an election, a run election for 3 years, 2003 to 2006. We were doing a run election in one state constituency, my own election in 1999. Because the community stood by it. At that time, just write a result. What did we do? The community mobilized itself to protect votes. And what was the method of protection? Being the number of people that you have, to wait and collect the materials. The materials are put into a police station, and we say, let's vote. Because they already know that the community is against the particular action or imposition that was coming on, we took a party that was non-existent, NDP, National Democratic Party. It didn't exist anywhere. And we just used a platform and we got into the field. And for 3 years, we couldn't get a result from that state constituency. Why? The community sits there with the ballot papers, and the next thing, while we are waiting for ballot papers to be distributed, they are announcing the result of that very election.
When ballot papers have not been
We are sitting there with the ballot papers in the police station, and results are announced against me. We pick the materials and go over 400 kilometers, 230 kilometers to Calabar. File petitions. May his soul rest in peace, Justice Wise. In the second run, in order to delay, because it is 21 days for you to file your petition, in order to make the time to elapse or give us no time to file, we are already prepared for the petition. We were to file 4 days after the election. We didn't get anything till 2 weeks after. We were left with just 1 week. We had to write to Justice Wise that the president of the Court of Appeal was not willing, Justice Adamu at that time, who was president of the Court of Appeal, was not willing to set up a panel for me, evidently on the underhanded influence of the powers that be, the governor at the time. He replied by courier and sent it to my house in Calabar and handed it to me to say, file your petition in the Court of Appeal Calabar Division. When we set up the panel, when the panel is set up to go and receive it. That was the letter we used to do that. See, as dysfunctional as the system was, as oppressive and repressive as it was, we still could find our way because the cost of justice and the will of justice is so slow everywhere in the world. And also you should know that you must be patient, tenacious, consistent and persistent and persevere. Otherwise, equity does not welcome the indolent. it cannot avail the indolent. So what I'm telling Nigerians this evening is to the effect that we must have to agree that our system has improved massively. Those who participated between 1999 and today have seen the massive improvement in the electoral system. And I imagine that by what we did in 1993, 2003, look at the trees and the years in which most of these things were happening to us. So you discover that almost every year that ends with 3 and every year that ends with 9 is historic in Nigeria. Oh. 1979, 1999, 2019.
Then 2023.
Then you look at 2023, 1993, 1983, the takeover of the government of Shagari, 1983, 1993, the annulment of an election that was free and fair. By 2023, a president emerges with the same ticket of Muslim to rule Nigeria and in peace.
All right. Thank you for taking us through the history. Well, the time is already up. I wanted us to talk about the protest because it means some persons are still not satisfied with the kind of democracy that we have yet. So kind, you are also attesting to the fact that the 1993 June 12 election is the best so far we've had in this country, as it has to do with free and fair elections. We can't talk more because of our time. I know Nigerians are waiting, but then all you have to do is to stay very close to your television and always tune to DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276 from now until tomorrow and beyond. We will be bringing you to speed with so many things about the historic June 12. Thank you so much, Honorable, for joining us on the desk today.
Thank you for having me, and may June 12 happen to us again and again.
Oh, I like that. May June 12 happen to all Nigerians again and again. That time that we won't be jumping to the streets to protest when we are marking a day such as June 12. Many thanks for joining us on the desk today. This is going to be the size of the desk, but then we are going to have another session tomorrow. The decks. We're going to have the decks tomorrow because it is June 12 and we're going to be having a special June 12 the desk tomorrow. On the decks tomorrow, you will know more about the historic June 12 of